What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do? Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Welcome to another episode of Three for the Money. All lines that we will be discussing are provided by DraftKings. Okay, this is bittersweet. This is bittersweet. I got my man Stuckey just in the trenches of Lexington. You heathens booed a man who gave you 15 years, won a title, and he did it classy, and he still beat you.
I was there.
But how cool was that?
Yeah, it was an electric atmosphere. It was funny. They
We're
they were
talking
actually
John Calipari, Kentucky, by the way.
yeah, they were uh yeah, there was a lot of booze. My I went with my
One of
father.
those games where it's just packed 20 minutes before, huh?
Yep. Even but prior to that. But they always give you bottles of beer at Rupp, but they had all the workers pouring beers into cups, which is very annoying for them in a full stadium. It was a Calipari request. He requested no bottles. I guess he was afraid that people were going to throw bottles.
Do you think they would have, honestly? I
No,
mean,
no, no, I don't think
that
so.
seems crazy.
But yeah, it got kind of contentious at the end with some of the players and the fans. But yeah, disappointing game for Kentucky fans. But yeah, it was not the best game for Kentucky. So we'll see if they can bounce back. But yeah, last football game until August. Kind of sad.
It really is. We're recording this early in the week, so obviously things can change a little bit. I mean, I think these practices. I was talking to a buddy on the Chiefs. Once you get to the site, the practices aren't exactly. I think they have intense practices usually last week where some pads get sweat. This is more, midway walkthrough. And if you look at these teams, right, they both. I mean, they have a lot of veteran players. The Eagles got some influx of young guys. I mean, the Chiefs have younger players, but it's like I remember last year I was in Vegas and I went out with one of my buddies on the scouting staff, and he's like, you know what's crazy? He's like, and that was before they had won the game, but they were about to win the game. Like, think about Karlofskis and McDuffie, who were they trade Tyreek Hill. They use their two first round picks. They trade up. They get McDuffie. They actually do a trade with Belichick to get Karlofskis. All those two guys know they're two-time Super Bowl champs. They've been in the league. This is their third year. They've won two rings, and they are favored to win their third straight. I mean,
Crazy.
like Joe Montana, Mean Joe Green, like the history of like, no one can even relate to the life they're leading. And Patrick Mahomes can't relate to the life they're leading. They're living good,
It's
bro.
it's insane.
They're living good. I've already I saw you during Pebble Beach tweet out some live wagers. Your boy, I put in like a $1,000 and I spread it around, and I put a little on Rory before 14-1, so I hit that. So
Nice.
I got a little action. I've already placed a Kelsey Jalen same game parlay to both score. I guess we have to just talk about the big picture game before we get into all the props. I mean, I've learned my lesson betting against Kansas City. Though I do think, if you just look at their last two games, I think this Eagles team is definitely better than the last two teams they beat. But I'm not trying to justify or figure this out once your Ravens 2 years ago lost that game. It's like I'm just not betting against this team. I've learned my lesson. I just bet on the football gods taking them out with Josh Allen, the Bills. That didn't happen. I heard a stat from cousin Sal that if you like the favorite to win, like they usually cover. I think like a large percentage of the teams the last like 15 years, it was just the Rams. I think it was a close game, but other than that, like the favorites just cover. So if you like Kansas City, obviously just hammer 1.5, which is what they were just last week, and they hammered that pretty easily. I guess not super easily, but I just think how do you bet against the Chiefs? I mean, it's just when you look at it, you go Andy Reid, Mahomes versus Sirianni and Jalen. Though it's not that simple because I mean Sirianni's not calling plays; he's just kind of sitting there with Dom, like motivating the troops. So it's really Andy versus Fangio. But Patrick and Andy. Now, granted, he was on some, Denver wasn't exactly a great team when he was there. They kicked their ass. So it's just how do we get around going, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win this game? Because I saw this clip. I think I was at the gym within the last like month, and they were replaying the Super Bowl from Arizona. I had forgotten that the Chiefs were down 10 points at halftime to the Eagles.
I mean, Hurts played amazing, and they still lost.
Like they were getting worked.
Yep. Well, you say you don't bet against Mahomes in the playoffs. You've learned your lesson.
He's been down in all three of these Super Bowls in the second half. All three of them.
All four.
Yeah, but I'm talking
Four.
about the ones he's won.
Yeah. But the one he lost, he was
He
down.
got
So
killed.
2019, they were tied at the half. And then trailed in the second half. They were tied 10-10, 130, 120. 2020, they were down 21-6 at the half, lost 31-9. 2022, down 24-14 into the first half, 138-35. That was against the Eagles. And then last year, down 10-3 at the end of the first half, 125-22. Mahomes 8-0 straight up and against the spread in the playoffs as a favorite of under a field goal or an underdog. So yeah, why bet against them? But I I placed a wager on something that I bet last year. I bet the 49ers first half. I bet the Eagles first half. It was a plus 1.5 out there, but even plus a half is fine. I paid a little extra for plus 1.5. Maybe it's a little lower scoring early. Maybe Jake Elliott misses an extra point. Um,
You're not worried
but
about Philly being a pretty terribly starting team most of the season?
yeah, that worries me a little bit. But the Chiefs have started slow in all of these Super Bowls as well, which is surprising. Because when I break these two teams down, if you look at the rosters, like position by position, offensive line, like give me Philadelphia, wide receivers, give me Philadelphia, running back, give me Philadelphia, like tight end, maybe it's close to wash. And Kelsey in the playoffs is different, but it's not a huge edge. Defensive line, I'd take Philadelphia. I mean, Chris Jones is a monster. Karlaftis is really good, so maybe it's close to even. Linebacker without Dean, maybe it's close to even. Secondary, I'll take Philadelphia. So where's the difference? It's
Coaching.
quarterback and coaching. So again, like if Mahomes has the ball late with a chance to win the game, he's probably going to win it. Will Hurts against Spags defense? Not as confident in saying that. Who do I trust to make better adjustments at halftime? The Chiefs. So I I took the plus. I took the points with the Eagles in the first half. Although I expect the Chiefs to win, I will look to bet this game live, just like I did Chiefs Bills. Every time the Chiefs went up, I would bet the Bills live, then the Bills would score. I would bet the Chiefs live. Like the most likely outcome is Chiefs win this game by 3, which they seem to do more often than not. Um, in the playoffs, in Super Bowls, in the regular season, whenever they just do enough to win. And yeah, so I bet the Eagles first half. We'll be looking to bet the Chiefs live. Don't fault anyone for betting Chiefs full game for sure. It's just Mahomes and that staff. They get it done. Their offense is now healthier. They obviously also hold stuff back. It's pretty obvious. In the regular season, they kind of just do what they need to do. And then like last week, you have the wrinkles of Mahomes running the ball. So they have, you have 2 weeks to prepare. You're going to see some more wrinkles on offense. You're going to see Spags have some wrinkles and you know, some blitzes that just catch the Eagles off guard. Hurts holds the ball forever. How many drives does that kill? The game plan is going to be focused on, especially on early downs, on taking away Barkley. Can he break runs? That'll be interesting to watch. But the really interesting part about this matchup, you have two teams that really control the ball. They're used to just dominating time possession, and now they're playing against each other. Who is going to win that battle? Who's going to be able to convert those third downs more often? Over the course of the game, it's probably the Chiefs. Can they prevent the Eagles from getting the 4th and 1, from getting all those tush pushes? So I think it'll be a super competitive game. I think the Eagles have a better roster, but as we've seen so many times in this game, just like that San Francisco game, I thought San Francisco had the better roster. It's Mahomes, Reed, and that staff. That'll probably be the difference. But I think it'll be a competitive game. That the one thing, look, you can be tired of the Chiefs, and but the one thing that you can say is they at least usually give us a compelling game that's
For sure.
close.
For sure. I mean, to me, they are. The one thing the Patriots brought to the table, and obviously that thing, I mean, who knows? I mean, this Chiefs early on. I mean, Mahomes is I don't even think 30 yet. Uh, Andy definitely he's slimmed down. He's eating well, so he's a young, vibrant 66. I mean, he ain't going away. And Veach is young. I mean, this kind of nucleus now. Maybe Chris Jones and Kelsey change out as the Patriots change out some players, but they're not necessarily going away. But people got tired of the Patriots, but they were always entertaining games. Like their games were part of their legend is it was just must watch TV. You know, it wasn't some blowout, that Seattle Denver game in New York. It was like that sucked. No one believes that's ever going to happen with the Chiefs. Literally, it doesn't happen this season. Every single game in somewhat looks the same, and they end up winning what? 17 of the 19 of the
17,
games.
yeah, 17
And
in a
one of them
row,
they
one
punted. One
possession.
of them they didn't even care.
Yeah, and they've won like an NFL record number of one possession games in a row. And a lot of that is reliable kicker, good coaching, Hall of Fame quarterback who's going to win you the game late. And they just do enough to win. And then you got a defensive coordinator who's going to call up timely blitzes like just that are against what the other off with their tendency breakers. We saw that against the Bills on that key fourth down. Bills were not expecting them to blitz as they did, and it ended up winning them the game. So they just have, at the end of the game, they just have so many championship caliber characteristics from the coaching to the special teams to most importantly the quarterback. Especially if you give Mahomes four downs and he needs it to go down the field, he's probably going to get it done. So, yeah, it's I think that the Eagles have the better overall team, but against the Chiefs and all their championship DNA, a lot of times that doesn't matter.
Well, if you go back 2 years ago, and I remember my buddies with the Eagles are like, listen, we really like Gannon. We think he's going to be a better head coach than he was a coordinator. Like he's just good with the team, good motivating, but he's not. No one's getting him confused with Steve Spagnuolo or whatever.
Sure.
So they've upgraded a defensive coordinator since 2 years ago. That defense was good, right? Didn't they lead the league in sacks? I mean, they had like four double-digit guys,
Yeah.
interior and exteriors, like Fletcher, Hargrave, and a couple of the edge rushers. But this defensive line right now is playing pretty well. And you'd go, they upgraded at coordinator, and Slay was a little younger, obviously a couple years ago. Bradbury was just okay, so they're probably better at corner, very similar at safety. They literally just brought the dude back, CJ, who played in that game, took a year off, came back. But what do you make of if you go, okay, that because that Eagles defense was pretty top notch, very similar this year. Could you even argue an upgrade? But the coordinator, who is, I think, one of the better ones of his generation, but the matchup with Andy and Mahomes being comfortable with, Vic ain't Belichick. It doesn't look different every week. Like you kind of know what you're getting. And when he's got really good players, and I saw it firsthand with the Niners, he will beat the shit out of you. And I remember going to a game when he played the Chiefs. When Andy first got there, the Chiefs were pretty good. He turned it around quick because they were really good on defense. But Alex was kind of their limitation. I remember they beat him in just a bloodbath game between the two teams, like Tom Ball Lee and Justin Houston. It was like, God, someone's gonna get like die on the field here. But once he got Mahomes and playing those Denver teams, but it's also like those Denver teams were terrible. It wasn't all Vic's fault, right? So
Yeah.
what do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated to watch. I mean, the Eagles defense, they addressed, you got to give Howie Roseman a lot of credit. They addressed their biggest needs on that side of the ball. Number one, coordinator upgrade. But their corners were lacking, and they brought in DeJean and Mitchell, who have both hit. I mean, they're playing outstanding. And then linebacker was a huge position of need, and they brought in Zach Bound, and he's played at an all-pro level. And you had Nakobe Dean, who unfortunately got hurt, but they really addressed their biggest needs, and it's translated on the field. They've arguably been the best defense in the NFL this year. I'm always so fascinated to watch. You have 2 weeks to prepare. There is some familiarity there. The Chiefs are going to have some wrinkles on both sides of the ball. What do the Eagles do from because you have to change what you already have on film. You have to come with some new wrinkles against Mahomes. So that's what I'm most fascinated to watch. I do think that their corners can match up on the outside with the Chiefs wide receivers, and I anticipate the Chiefs will try to attack over the middle of the field. And the Chiefs running, I mean, the Eagles' run D's been really good too. The Chiefs' rushing attack has not been as efficient since they kicked out Tooney to left tackle, which Reed said they're going to still do. I think Mahomes is just more comfortable when he's at left tackle from a protection standpoint, but it's definitely weakened their run blocking with Caliendo at left guard. Because you get Tooney all pro left guard, and you get
Did they
a
have the best
big.
guard center guard combo in the league, you think, when he was
Yeah,
there?
and then your tackles, you had a big left tackle who struggled in pass protection, which can ruin a game, which is probably why they're more comfortable with Tooney out there. But you had a big tackle and then Tooney at left guard, that great interior. Like your running game was much better. So this will probably be a just higher volume Mahomes passing game, which we see in the playoffs more often than not. But what wrinkles does Fangio have and they'll be across the board. Like we can look at this matchup and what these teams have done all year, but it's the Super Bowl. It's one game. There's 2 weeks to prepare. There's going to be some schematic surprises, and that could end up deciding the game.
Okay, let's dive into some props. I think once they made the Super Bowl, there was already a lot of buzz out there. Maybe if they had missed, Kelsey goes, "Hey, I still got." He had just got a contract extension the previous year. Once they make it, win or lose, like he's no dummy. He understands how difficult. I mean, he was in the league a long time before they started rattling off these Super Bowls. If he was on the fence, I think there's a pretty good chance that he's done.
Yep,
And him
I
and
agree.
him and Andy have a pretty special relationship. Like Andy's kind of it's gonna be like clutch LeBron Lakers. Like they're all kind of in the loop here. I think Andy is gonna get this guy a touchdown, or at least try and have some wrinkles to have this guy score in the Super Bowl. So you can get Kelsey, who is I don't know on a short list of great playoff performers in the history of the league, at plus 135 on DraftKings to score a touchdown. Like that was just an auto hammer to me.
Don't hate that. Yeah, I mean he's going to be heavily involved.
Both tight ends. I know you like Goddard too, but I think the tight end's big this week.
Yeah, I anticipate the Chiefs will try to attack over the middle of the field. No Dean. That is the weakness. I think the Eagles have the advantage at corner. Their run D's good. Chiefs aren't running it as well. I also like Worthy anytime touchdown. He actually is just below Kelsey in targets per route run in the red zone this year, and he leads the team in red zone reception touchdowns. He also gets the ball other ways. They'll hand it to him in the red zone. So plus 165 you can find on him. I think that should be like closer to plus 140. But yeah, Kelsey's going to be heavily involved here. And I agree. If he wins this, I could see him riding off into the sunset. I mean, you just three-peated. What else is there to do? Going out on top. Yeah, I like Goddard a lot. I mean, the Chiefs can't, they really struggle to defend tight ends. They give up the most yards per route run against opposing tight ends of any team in the NFL.
Why
They're
do you
out
think that
about
is?
six catches per game.
Linebackers
I mean,
aren't
they're
great
really
cover
good
guys.
against. They blitz a lot. They're really good on the outside against receivers. So where
Yeah.
else are you throwing the ball? And their linebackers and safeties aren't elite in coverage. So there's opportunity there. And Goddard, I mean, past 7 games since he came back, he's looks fully healthy. He looks great. He's averaged about 4.5 catches on 5.5 targets for about 52 yards per game. But in the playoffs, this is the guy who always shows up. Last week, I think he had 7 catches on 8 targets for 85 yards. He's played 8 playoff games since becoming basically a full-time starter. 6 out of the 8, he's had at least 5 catches. 6 out of the 8, he's had at least 50 yards. He's averaged 6 catches on about 8 targets for 64 yards. If you look at the medians, it's like 5.5 catches on 6.5 targets for 60 yards. Chiefs also run a lot of man. Goddard, elite versus man. Almost 4 yards per route run this year, which is number one amongst all tight ends against man coverage. And even if you look at the games where there's only 6 or 7 of them, when Goddard, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith all played together with Hurts, Goddard was still number two in target share. Also, high target share against the blitz. I, I think they got to get the ball out quick here. And look, the Eagles are used to playing from ahead. They played a soft schedule. They're used to playing with a lead, up big, and then you just run the ball and run out the clock, right? Well, they're underdogs in this game. You're more likely than most of your games you played this year to be in a more pass-heavy game script. So I think that Goddard should get a bunch of looks here. A scary one I like is Mahomes' longest rush under 13 and a half. I mean, look, if there's ever a 3rd and 13, I'm going to be shitting my pants because he always just finds a way to run for like one more yard. And it seems like he just knows the perfect speed to be at, whether it's a defensive lineman, a linebacker, a corner. He's always one step ahead and he'll get the first down by a yard. But I think this is too high. This opened at like 10.5, and it's a popular bet. So a lot of times these popular overs get inflated. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out if this is going to go to 14.5 or not. But if you want to bet unders, you want to bet them later in the week. They tend to peak around Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Quarterback props on Saturdays. All the public money can have a say on this. And if you want to bet overs on popular players, you want to bet them earlier on. Um, but Mahomes, he does run more in the playoffs. But if you look over the course of his entire career, he's had 540 rush attempts. 54 of them have gone for more than 13.5 yards. It's about 10%. In the playoffs, he runs a little more. He runs about 5.5 carries per game in the playoffs compared to about four in the regular season. He's had 108 playoff rush attempts. 10 of them have gone over 13.5. So that's only about 9%. All of his games combined, he's played 132 games. Only 46 of those games has he had a rush of over 13.5 yards. So it's about 35% of his games. Only gone over it 9 out of 20 times in the playoffs. This year, 5 out of 18 games. And only about 1 out of every 15 carries has gone for over 13.5 yards. His rushing props at about 5.5 carries. I think he would need like 8-ish carries on average to get over this because number one, some other reasons to like this. The Eagles, they don't give up any explosive plays. They keep everything in front of them. It's not a man-heavy defense that's just going to blitz a lot. So the chances of Mahomes being able to break one are lower than they would be in some other matchups. And if you look this year, the Eagles allowed 84 quarterback rushing attempts. Only four went for over 13.5 yards. That's less than 5% of the quarterback carries. And they faced Jaden Daniels three times and Lamar Jackson once. And those quarterbacks, Lamar and Daniels, who were the best runners in the NFL, they had 30 carries. Only three of them went for over 13.5 yards. So one out of every 10. So if you're expecting Mahomes to get like six-ish carries here, I think there's value on this under. The other thing to keep in mind is the Eagles are a ball control offense, like the Chiefs. The Chiefs are used to having the ball for most of the game. Well, now you're playing another team that could have 8 to 9 minute drives, which just takes away some of the opportunities that Mahomes might have to get rushing attempts. So I think over 13.5 is a bit too high. Opened at like 10.5, which I think is probably closer to where this should be priced. It's scary. He could easily get it, but I think it's too high.
What about the other quarterback on the ground? Because I just looked in 22 when they, lost Super Bowl. They only played 3 games, right? Because they were the 1 seed, so they played 2 games, and one was against the Niners when Purdy got injured. He had 5 touchdowns during that run, and this year he just had 3, but he had the long run against the Rams, or was that the Packers? Was the Packers to open up the game? One of
Yeah.
those two teams. It was Packers, yeah. And you can get him just anytime touchdown at minus 110. To me, it feels I have a hard time seeing, and for whatever reason, and I don't know if the stats don't back this up, but I feel like every single game they get a situation like the 1 or 2 yard line, and that's clearly just automatic. So it's why I parlayed the Kelsey Jalen anytime parlay, but I have a hard time seeing Jalen Hurts not score. I feel it's more likely that Jalen scores a touchdown than Saquon Barkley scores a touchdown. Am I nuts?
No, I mean, plus even if they're at like the two or three,
They can tush push twice to get
they
in,
just
right?
tush push twice and do it.
They can start it on the first
So
down.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, don't hate that at all. I mean, they get anywhere near the goal line, Hurts is going to score. So, um, yeah, I don't hate that. It's
What about him as a runner? Because the one thing, we were like Lamar a year ago, not running on them. Partly it was the coordinator as well. Josh has had a lot of success running on them. Uh, Jalen is not exactly apples to apples to those two guys running, but he is a really good runner. Uh, do you think that? his over under rushing yards if you can get him 50, 60 yards, or is that not
I
really how
just,
they want to play?
yeah, I don't know how they're going to play like the read option. Are they going to just try to take away Barkley? And then in that case, that could open up some opportunities for Hurts. But I also don't know if he's fully healthy. Like last week, you could tell running straight ahead, he's fine. But lateral movement, he might still be maybe a little limited, maybe a little hesitant. So maybe takes away some designed runs. Maybe it just doesn't lead to as many big runs. So the health uncertainty, like he's clearly helping out the play, it'll look fine. But from a running perspective, it might impact him a bit. So that uncertain, but he's had 2 weeks off. So I had too much uncertainty for me to get involved there. I assume that the Chiefs are going to focus on taking away Barkley on early downs. And mo teams that have done that in the playoffs, they've bottled him up for long stretches. It's been the long runs that have just killed the other teams. Like he's from an efficiency standpoint. And look, the Eagles have not faced a hard schedule of opposing defenses this year. And even in the playoffs, like the Rams, the Packers, the Commanders, these aren't great defenses. Can what impact can Barkley have? Like assuming the Chiefs are gonna, load the box and try to take him away on early downs. And then you're in late down situations where Spags giving the pressure, Hurts tends to hold the ball too long. That's another reason why I do like Goddard too, is blitz. Like, you got to get rid of the ball quick
Yeah.
here. But yeah, I tend to think Barkley's numbers are all inflated. Like I would lead under on a lot of his numbers because one, I think the Chiefs are going to focus on him. This still a pretty good defense. I do think their defense is a bit overrated overall. People view it. They faced a lot of teams with injuries this year, and if you look at what the Bills did, the Texans even had success running on them. But
They're a
you got
good
to remember,
tackling team. That first run for Barkley,
yeah,
where I think it was like, what is going on here?
yeah, that won't happen against the
I would say
Chiefs.
all 11 guys, specifically the DBs, McDuffie, Reed. I mean, they tackle well. So he's not
Yep,
just going to have some 7 yard run turned into 40 because two guys fucking chicken wing it.
yep. So yeah, I don't mind his under rushing yards. The Chiefs are going to be focused on it. I don't think they're going to give up as many long runs, like you said. Great tackling team. And then again, just the point I just made is the Eagles are used to playing from ahead all year, right? They had an easy schedule. They're used to playing from ahead, and then Barkley just gets a ton of carries against weak defenses. Well, now, as an underdog and against the Chiefs, you're more likely to be playing from behind, where you're going to have to throw. You're playing a defense that's focused on him. And like I just said, the Eagles are now playing their their counterpart in time of possession, right? They're not used to playing a team like the Chiefs that will just the Chiefs have no explosiveness on their offense, right? They might hit an explosive player too, but they're one of the least explosive offenses in the NFL. And the Eagles don't give up any explosive plays. That is one of their strengths. They keep everything in front of them. They're the number one explosive pass D in the NFL. So what does that mean? That means it's Mahomes doing what they've done all year. It's methodically moving the ball down the field. What does that mean? The Eagles and Barkley are on the sidelines for long stretches. So and everyone wants to bet the Barkley over. So I think the Barkley numbers are all inflated. It's it's tough to figure out which one to go with because if you go under rush attempts, I think yards is just the best way to go. Because you go, I think rush attempts is too high. Same with longest rush. But if he breaks a long run, then obviously he goes over longest rush. And then that'll help under rushing attempts because then it's just taking away a huge part of the field where we would add carries. Um, but if he doesn't go over his longest rush, that means he might get more carries. So yeah, I think the best way to go is just under rushing yards total on Barkley. I think that number is like 10, 15 yards too high. And if he breaks 70-yard run, you tip your cap. But yeah, the Chiefs could have the ball a ton here. Eagles might have to pass more than they have all year. I mean, this is a team that's just been, and they're elite as a front runner, but they're not playing the Chiefs every week. So I don't mind the Barkley unders as scary as they are and sound after what he's done this year.
One if you go to the Texans game where they got two high end rushers, they only sacked him 3 times, but I thought early in that game they were just causing havoc. The one thing with the Eagles is their defensive line, I mean, has really come on the second half of the season in the playoffs. I mean, Carter, I mean, you could make the argument, just talent wise, like a top 10 player, non-quarterback in the NFL.
Nolan
Sweat's a
Smith
good
too. He's
player.
come
Nolan
along.
Smith, yeah. I mean, Milton Williams is a free agent. You got they just got a lot of people, right? And that's to me one thing that Fangio, like his baby, has always been dominating the line, like with his good defenses, like his front just plays to another level, especially in big games. So if the Chiefs are going to lose, you go, well, what's the formula? It would be, well, what was their formula to lose the last Super Bowl? Their offensive line kind of got manhandled. Now, both their tackles, right, had torn Achilles, or I forget
Yeah.
the exact
Yeah.
injuries,
There are a
but were
bunch of
out.
backup
They, they,
offensive
they were they
linemen.
were fucked.
Yeah.
This isn't quite that situation, but clearly, I mean, if Andy Reid was true serum, he'd be like, yeah, our offensive line needs to be a lot better moving forward. That's going to be a point of emphasis for them this offseason, I'm sure. So you go, if they're going to lose, like, you can get a lot of plus numbers. Jalen Carter to get a sack plus 131. Josh Sweat to get a sack plus 150. Nolan Smith to get a sack plus 112. Like they're going to get a couple sacks. They're going to get them because the one thing is Mahomes likes to make plays. He likes to hold the ball a little bit. He's usually unlike some of these other guys. He pulls it off. Sometimes Jalen like just stops and takes a sack like Mahomes kind of weasels away. But these guys are such freaks. It's just sometimes it's hard. And Jalen, to me, one of the plays, especially like you said, moving Dooney out to left tackle, like he's just gonna be over that guard sometimes. And it's not like Joe can help him out because he's got to worry about whoever's over him. And he's just
Yep.
one of those plays, the guy's just gonna fucking whiff on him. And the 6'5", 320-pounder, Patrick's just not gonna be able to run away. I think him getting a sack feels like a lock in this game.
Yeah. He's going to have favorable matchups. And Mahomes' sack numbers, pressure to sack ratio has gone up this year. And the Eagles can cover on the back end. I think I, he's I think destined to make a big play here. I also Chris Jones feels like he's probably going to get a sack too.
Yeah, I agree.
Like Hurts holds the ball forever. I know there's going to be a lot of attention on him, but we don't even know how healthy the interior of the Eagles' offensive line is. I assume everyone's going to play, but dealing with some injuries, so maybe that shows up as well. But Hurts is, I mean, you look, no one has held the ball longer. Actually, Deshaun Watson, that was it. Uh, but as far as quarterbacks who ended the year as a starter, Hurts holds the ball a ton. And going up against Spags and with this game script, they might be behind, might have to throw more. Feels like
What
Chris
about
Jones.
re-injure potential too? With a back and a knee, like one of those
Yep,
whoever is out there, all of a
yep,
sudden Jurgen's back's tightening up,
yep,
Dickerson's knees, okay, I'm feeling good pregame, then all of a sudden Chris Jones hits him. He's like, oh shit, I can't walk. That's got one of those two guys has that written all over him, doesn't it?
yep, yeah, and that's like you have really good tackles. You can maybe neutralize the edge rush for Kansas City, but with the blitzes and pressures that Spags is going to draw up, I can see Jones getting home on Hurts, if not once, but maybe even twice.
One of my flyers, I'll end for me on this, is forever. It's only improved over the years. Is Andy off a bye? I mean, he's truly one of the great offensive minds in the history of the game. Chiefs first drive touchdown plus 195. I mean, it's been so long and he's become a legend since, but this is still the team that fired him. I mean, listen, we're all human beings. I know he's friends with Howie and he's friends with Jeffrey Lurie, and the Eagles put him on the map and everything. They still fired him. So I just think that he's always motivated with the extra time. It's been a point of difference for him over his career. This is the Super Bowl. He's a bright lights guy. Kelsey going out. He's got Mahomes. I just think Chiefs first drive. Who knows? Maybe some trick plays. All of a sudden, it's like, oh yeah, Andy told us he stole this one from the 1957 Army Navy game. Like he not just holding that till the third. You never know. It could be like the second play of the game.
Yeah.
This guy's he's bringing it. This isn't Kellen Moore like after Nass, Sirianni, and Howie. Like, are we cool if we do this? Like anything he wants to do, he can do. and he's got three guys on his staff looking over tape for the last 100 years. You know they like to. They had practice this morning. I'm sure they have some crazy play just to keep the guys fresh. It's like a classic Andy move. I just that first drive at almost 2-1 to score a touchdown feels pretty tasty. And what are the Chiefs? A bright lights team. What they do against your squad last year, against the Bills this year? It's like they fucking just if they do come ready, it might slow down after the first drive because they're so hyped up for it, and then all of a sudden it's like 10-7 going into halftime. But I can see that first drive, Andy have some tricks up his sleeve.
Yeah, I don't hate your reasoning at all. I will be rooting against it because I have the Eagles first half, and I want to bet the Chiefs live. Um, for my long shot, that I'll
And
give
by the way,
out,
you hit one of the great. I mean, last year, 14-1 on overtime. It
yeah, and
was
almost a
it, it
100 to 1 double overtime.
it was truly special.
That one play away. I watched the play clock. If there was, it was 1 second away from them being able to run it down to go to second overtime.
So when Mahomes threw
Um,
the touchdown, there was only 1 second left in the first quarter.
no, in the first overtime, so I had 100 to 1 to go double overtime, and there was under a minute to go, and there was like there was like 54 seconds.
Oh, got you.
They completed a pass, and there was 41 seconds left when they spotted the ball. So the play clock was at 40, which means they had to run another play. So if it was
Got you.
another second, there's a chance that they would have said, "Let's talk about this
Take a deep
play."
breath. Yeah.
And like, so I was,
He just snapped the ball with like 20 or 30
yeah, like
seconds to
20
do
seconds
whatever.
left. But there was a chance that maybe they just ran it down and like, let's talk about the play. I was watching the clock so intently, and it went 41, and I was like, no.
Would that have been the greatest
Um,
hit of your life? 100-1? It doesn't get much better than that.
yeah, I had 120 to 1 a tennis future, Marin Cilic at the U.S. Open like tw 12 years ago or something. Um, but yeah, that would have been up there. I'll th for MVP, it's hard. I mean, it's a quarterback award. Um, Obviously, like Barkley has a better chance than a running back usually would because of how important he is and what kind of season he's had. I think Kelsey, obviously, because just the narrative and he hasn't won it and he could have a big day. But if you look back
I think like 9 out of
over
57 defensive players have won the MVP. And the last one was, did Donald win the MVP when the Rams won it?
um the
Or Stafford?
no, that was Cup.
Oh, yeah.
Um the last defender to win it might have been, let's see, since 2000, the defenders to win it were what, Malcolm Brown, Dexter Jackson won it for the
Multiple pick
Bucks.
sixes. Yeah.
Um, Von Miller, I think, was the last one in
Ah,
2016.
I was there.
Um, yeah, Malcolm Smith, Von Miller, Dexter Jackson, Ray Lewis too. I think those are the defenders that have won it
So it hasn't happened
since
in a while.
2000. Yeah. So maybe there's a defensive lineman that could win it. But if you look, since Von Miller won it, you have Brady, Foles, Mahomes. The only other non-quarterbacks to win are receivers, Edelman and Cup. So you have to have just a high volume game. You need to score touchdowns. I'll throw out Xavier Worthy 30 to 1. Like, is there a way that a game where he has like 8 or 9 catches, a touchdown or two, and if he has like a big rush with a rushing touchdown, like I could see Worthy having an Edelman or Cup type of game. And does it still probably go to Mahomes? Probably, but that's why you can get 30, 35 to 1. So that's my long shot that I'll throw out for this year. Xavier Worthy MVP.
What would it take for a defensive player to get it, you think? Like Vaughn had
Low,
multiple sacks and a forced fumble, right?
probably score, and you need it to be like a lower scoring game.
Like could
You
Zach
can't have like,
Vaughn with like 11 tackles and a pick six get it?
yeah, but it's hard for me to imagine the Chiefs just like not scoring enough,
Yeah,
right? So like that would mean the Eagles have to score more,
that's true.
and who's getting it? But you would need just like a weird distribution. Um, it's it would be tough. Yeah, you would need like a defender to score, have a huge day, and it be a low scoring game. Um, so yeah, it's tough for me to see a defensive player winning it in this particular game, but you never know.
I, s- I think I had NFL Network on and they were showing some highlights of the Bucks Raiders. Maybe it was a YouTube, I forget, but God, that game was terrible.
That was
I mean,
awful Super Bowl.
Rich was just throwing pick after pick after pick after pick. I mean, it was one point in time it was like 48-20. I mean, it was rough.
That was amazing that a defensive player won it in a game that was 48 to 21 final. And a defensive player won it. That's an anomaly. I mean, like, because if you look what happened, Brad Johnson was 18 to 34, 200 yards, two touchdowns, and interception. Like, you're not going to give it to him. Pittman ran the ball 30 times for 120 yards, no touchdowns. So you're not going to give it to him. Like, Keenan McCardell, their he scored two touchdowns for the Bucks, but he had two catches for 13 yards. Their other leading receiver was Joe Jaravicious. He had four catches, 70 yards, no touchdowns. It's like, who are you giving it to? Right? Like they scored 48 points. So it just all worked out that way. Like that's how you would need a defensive, either a really low scoring game or it's just like no one stuck out offensively for you.
I feel like
And
teams like that won't even exist anymore. Like those back to
yeah,
back, like the Ravens, Bucks, where it's just like Dilfer, Brad Johnson, random offensive guys, but just an all time defense. Like I just don't think we're getting those. They used to happen a lot.
yeah,
I
it's a different game now. Which is why since 2016, we've only seen quarterbacks and wide receivers win it. So, uh, and that when Von Miller won it, that was the Broncos won 24 to 10, and
Peyton couldn't throw after the first drive.
Peyton Manning was 13 of 23 for 140 yards, no touchdowns and interception. The final score was 24 to 10. You know, CJ Anderson had 23 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown. Like, is that MVP worthy? Not
No.
really. And then their leading receiver, Emmanuel Sanders, had six catches for 83 yards. Maybe if he got a touchdown, he could have won it, but uh, that's how a defender won it. And yeah, I mean, Von Miller had two and a half sacks, six total, six total tackles, 24-10, no offensive standouts. He's a household name. That's how a defender won it. But hard to see in this game. But
That's probably the last great defense. I saw that team play live a bunch. I mean, they were just they had four high end D linemen. All their linebackers were good and their DBs were sweet. And
yep,
even back then, like in 15, 16, 17, you could still kind of hit. Like Aqib Talib would hit you. TJ Ward would fucking rock your socks off. You can't really play like that. So it's like they could cover, and if you went across the middle, you get decapitated. It's like the you can still build a good defensive line. It's just harder to build the secondaries, which the Ravens, the Bucks definitely had, where you would just get you might go to the hospital. So it's like it's just
the
much easier to
rules just
throw
to
it
make
out.
it so much harder. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So well, it's sad, Stuckey. We just got one more football game, and you got college basketball. So, any plugs for a team that you like that's flying a little under the radar? I saw Gonzaga; they just lose to St. Mary's. They're not as
Yeah,
good this year.
they're like 0 and 7 in games decided by 6 points or less this year. They cannot close out a game. It's a major problem for them. I think Texas Tech is legit. We saw them just win at Houston. If you want to take a flyer on them, like they can get them like 8 to 1 to make the Final Four if you want to get crazy to win the national title. I also like Illinois, Texas A&M is uh some flyers to make the Final Four. Not super long shots, but not at the top of the board. Um, so yeah, those are some of the teams I'll throw out. Big Bets on Campus, where we have three podcasts a week doing college basketball stuff. Action Network app, actionnetwork.com. I write up stuff every weekend. And yeah, follow me for commentary and all that jazz for college basketball through the tournament at Stuckey 2 on X. But it was a pleasure going through another season with you, brother, and can't wait till hopefully do it again next year starting in
It can't
August.
come soon enough. I'm already ready.
Start
Don't
the
get me wrong. I
countdown.
like free agency in the draft, but I much rather have games on Saturday and Sunday.
Absolutely.
Okay, Stucky, take it easy, bro. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Yep. Cheers, brother.